matters financial and geopolitical from a frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I'm grateful. I'll start my macro thoughts with Jamie McGeever of Reuters quoting Goldman Sachs. We were wrong, Goldman, on recent euro rally. But the bank sticks with its 12-month forecast of 0.95, and I have to agree with them. And I too was wrong for the last few weeks before the trend has reasserted itself. But it was a brutal rebound in the euro of nearly 10% in 4 weeks flat. Pretty remarkable. Eric Huntseder, chart of world stock indexes, futures showing the 950 ramp. He always puts up these tremendous images for us to look at. And I appreciate that, Eric. Home thoughts. This is the sunrise actually this morning. Nishith came to me, I was having my shower and said, darling, have you seen the sunrise? And I took a photograph and posted it on the internet, and it went very seriously viral. It was a beautiful morning. And then, it was there for about 5 minutes. It's so fleeting. And I'd like to thank Lamine Manjang, the CEO of Standard Chartered Bank East Africa. He's a good friend and threw a fantastic party yesterday at the Sankara. Lots of interesting people, lots of summoning power Lamine has, and good friend. We have dinner most Tuesdays with a few other folks. E.e.cummings sprang to mind. I carry your heart with me, I carry it in. I carry your heart with me, I carry it in my heart. I am never without it. Anywhere I go, you go, my dear, and whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate, for you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world, for beautiful you are my world, my true, and it's you are whatever a moon has always meant, and whatever a sun will always sing is you. Here is the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the root of the root and the bud of the bud, and the sky of the sky of a tree called life, which grows higher than soul can hope or mind can hide. And this is the wonder that's keeping the stars apart. I carry your heart, I carry it in my heart. I think I'm going to read that to Hannah tonight, because it's rather good, isn't it? I told you she wrote this most beautiful poem. We were all absolutely thrown. And then she double bluffed us and said, oh no, somebody else, I copied it off the internet. We thought, oh my God, because we've been telling everybody about it. We got so excited. We said, oh my God, I never seen there's a terrible thing, plagiarism. Fortunately, she was bluffing us all along, which was even more interesting in its own way. Le Monde, France, tweeted 6 membres de la FIFA arrêtés pour des faits présumés de corruption. This is this big thing that's happened. FIFA corruption scandal. People within FIFA should not be surprised at all. This is the end for them. Generations of top-ranking FIFA officials. I mean, it's been a complete racket. Well known, isn't it? Have engaged in rampant, systemic, deep-rooted corruption which has poisoned world football for decades, it was claimed, as 2 separate criminal investigations sparked the biggest crisis in the history of the sport. 9 officials at football's powerful governing body accepted bribes, kickbacks totaling hundreds of millions of dollars over more than 20 years, in return for awarding lucrative tournaments to certain countries and rigging FIFA's own presidential elections, US prosecutors said. On the same day, Swiss authorities announced a separate investigation into criminal mismanagement and money laundering surrounding the allocation of the 2018 and 2022 World Cups in Russia and Qatar, throwing the future of both tournaments into doubt. Look, the point is, this was a no-no. Right, that's the main point. But it is a tremendous effort on the part of the US to try and unpick it. And on that note, let me put up a photograph I found. I just typed in the beautiful game, which it is. And this is one of them that came up, National Geographic. Sepp Blatter tweeted 14 hours ago, "We welcome the actions of the Swiss and the US authorities. Read my statement." I haven't read his statement yet, but all I can say is he's presided over this whole thing. He's the emperor. And he has no clothes, and I think it's interesting how everyone's tiptoeing around him. And then another photograph when I put the beautiful game in popped up, and that was of Pele's bicycle kick. Have a look at that. According to Bloomberg, FIFA's Paris cash drop, $10,000 bundles stacked in suitcase. The suitcase was waiting in a hotel room in Paris. The cash inside neatly bundled into $10,000 stacks. That's something to think about. The money US authorities allege was payment for one of the most sought-after prizes in world soccer, a nod from FIFA, the sports governing body, to host the World Cup. The allegation, involving a bid by South Africa for the 2010 Cup, is contained in a stunning 47-count indictment, unsealed Wednesday by the US Justice Department, the result of a years-long investigation of corruption in FIFA. Clearly, a fluid time for FIFA, but let's see what comes out. I think it's it's needed a spring clean for a very, very long time. Agence France Presse tweeted Diplomatie, visite historique du Premier Ministre Serbe en Albanie. Serbian Prime Minister goes for his first visit ever to Albania, and that's a big step forward. Pentagon chief urges end to island building in South China Sea. US Defense Secretary Ash Carter on Wednesday called for an immediate end to island building by China and other countries near the South China Sea, urging the participants to stop militarizing the dispute and find a peaceful solution. Carter said China's island building efforts were out of step with the regional consensus, and that US military aircraft and warships would continue to operate in the area as permitted under international law. China's actions are bringing countries in the region together in new ways, he said in a military ceremony in Hawaii. Their increasing demand for American engagement in the Asia Pacific, we're going to meet it, he said. We will remain the principal security power in the Asia Pacific for decades to come, Carter said. Every intention to do that. That's what the pivot to Asia is all about. We want a peaceful resolution of all disputes and an immediate and lasting halt to land reclamation by any claimant. We also oppose any further militarization of disputed features, Carter said in his remarks. US officials say China has added some 2,000 acres, 800 hectares, to 5 outposts in the Spratlys, including 1,500 acres since the start of this year. And I said what I've been saying for a while, that the pivot to Asia has been bearing its teeth of late, detoured into Kiev, but that's still a live issue. I think it was unnecessary in my view. If you look at it from a geopolitical calculation, Russia is hardly, it's more of a paper tiger. I think really China is the serious adversary to US power. Alberto Del Rosario repeated a warning that Beijing was reclaiming land around isolated reefs in the South China Sea to turn them into islands. Put up a photograph of that. Pepe Escobar, in his normal witty self, patrolling the hood from China Sea to Shining Sea, author Pepe Escobar. If only madmen in real life were like Don Draper, channeling his true inner self after many a rocky season to finally click on "I'm okay, you're okay." Instead, we have a bunch of Pentagon madmen provoking every major geostrategic competitor all at once. That is the point I've been making for a while. The masters of war, the self-ascribed don't do stupid stuff Obama administration, are now announcing they're ready to dispatch military aircraft and ships within 18 kilometers of 7 artificial islands China has built up in the Spratly Islands. Beijing's response via the Global Times couldn't be other than there will be war. If the United States' bottom line is that China has to halt its activities, then a US-China war is inevitable in the South China Sea. The intensity of the conflict will be higher than what people usually think of as friction, said the Chinese. According to Beijing, 2 lighthouses on Huang Reef and Chigua Reef sites of reclamation works were built to improve navigation in safety in the South China Sea. Well, There's no evidence China will cease its island building work, even with US warships hanging out in the naval hood. Will the US Navy go heavy metal and unleash friction to prevent civilian Chinese vessels from moving around? Does the US Navy expect Beijing to just roll over and collapse? What the Global Times implies is that China will definitely strike back if the Americans come within 18 kilometers of the islands. Beijing already has electronically jammed Global Hawk long-range surveillance drones spying on the Nansha Islands, and Beijing is contemplating setting up an air defense identification zone in the South China Sea once the work on the 7 artificial islands is completed. South China Sea exceptionalist adventurism is how Pepe calls it, could get alarmingly out of hand. So we've got a very adversarial situation developing there, and I think the US has every intention to press its advantage and press China's nose into the mud a little bit. Russia begins huge surprise Air Force drill on same day as NATO starts Arctic training. Russia's military defense is taken to the skies for a massive and unexpected Air Force exercise. Sign of ongoing tensions over Ukraine. 250 aircraft and 12,000 service personnel are involved in the drill, according to its defense ministry. The ministry described the 4-day practice ordered by President Putin as a massive surprise inspection to check combat readiness. It comes as one of Putin's closest aides, Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Rogozin, issued a chilling warning to the West. Listen to this. He said, "It is our territory, it is our shelf, and we'll provide its security, and we will make money there. I have always joked about it, but they will not give us visas. They will put us on a sanctions list, but tanks do not need visas," he said. Which is an interesting point. John Schindler, and I never saw this, but that was referred to it, said a senior NATO non-US GOFO to me today, "We'll probably be at war this summer. If we're lucky, it won't be nuclear." Let that sink in. G7 ministers and central banks head today to begin a 3-day meeting in the German city of Dresden. Currency markets, as usual, are all over the place. The euro 109.35 last time I had a look. And moving away from a 1-month low of 108.19 touched on Wednesday. Look, I think it's going below parity, but we've had a big move post-COER, so we could have a little bit of a retracement, and it's trading over the last few sessions, well, last 2 sessions, a little bit firmer. Dollar index back above 97. It has advanced. The Bloomberg Spot Index had advanced 1.8% the previous 4 days, the highest since April 21. And I think that trend is set to continue reasserting itself. Japanese yen last trading at 123.99, and I think that's going to 125.25, and then higher. Swissy 0.9470 when I checked last. The pound very soft, 153.08. Aussie earlier this morning 0.7685. Indian rupee 63.875. South Korean won 11.0541. Rial 314.21. I'm very bearish the Rial, as you know. Egyptian pound 763.02. And the Rand was last trading at 12.07. Girolamo Aloe, who I don't follow on Twitter, but appeared on my timeline yesterday, tweeted US dollar, Japanese yen, US dollar, Canada are ready to spike up, and he wasn't wrong. Put up the image that he put up. Dollar yen, of course, traded beyond 124 early this morning, as high as 124.30, which is the highest level for the dollar since late 2002. Let me put up the chart, and you can see what I'm talking about. This is a major breakout in the dollar. Dollar index, I put up a 3-month chart. I think it's headed back to 100, where we started to back off recently, and now I think we're going back again a lot stronger. Dollar Canada 124.75, very, very bullish dollar Canada actually. I think we're going to 140. Euro dollar, let me put up a 3-month chart. As I said, a little bit resilient of late, which is interesting. But I'm talking about the last 36 hours when it's sort of hung in there around the 109 level. We're now at 109.35. And then Eric Scott Hunsader again, he's tweeted this photograph, detecting high frequency trading in Bitcoin. And This was one of his followers tweeted him apparently. Commodity markets, gold were last at 1189. I think you sell rallies because I think we're going to break down again. The tanker market is sending a big warning to oil bulls. 4 months into oil's rebound from a 6-year low, the tanker market is sending a clear signal that the rally is under threat. A sudden surge in demand for supertankers drove benchmark charter rates 57% higher in the 2 weeks through May 20. OPEC will have almost 500 million barrels of oil in transit to buyers at the start of June, the most this year, while analysts say about 20 million barrels is being stored on ships in another indication the glut is yet to dissipate. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries is pumping the most oil in more than 2 years, determined to defend market share rather than prices. A record cut to the number of active US drilling rigs and billions of dollars of spending reductions by companies since last year's price plunge has yet to translate into a slump in barrels produced. The world is pumping about 1.9 million barrels a day more crude than it needs. I think China was a big buyer. They scooped up a lot of stuff because they created all this storage, but I'm sure they've run out of storage as well. Daily rates, listen to this, for supertankers on the industry's benchmark route reached $83,412 on May 20, from $52,987 on May the 6th. Massive demand for tanker storage. How interesting. Crude oil, I'll put up a 1-month chart. I think you sell it. It tends to fly around, but I think you sell it with a very wide stop at 65, around there. It has popped about 0.2% higher, but sank 5.3% over the last 2 trading sessions. Sub-Saharan Africa, Ethiopian ruling coalition wins majority of parliamentary seats. That was expected, predicted, and predictable. The Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, or EPRDF, and allied parties won all 442 seats counted so far in the 547-member federal parliament. Chairman Merga Bekana told reporters Wednesday in the capital, Addis Ababa. I'll put up a photograph that the Voice of America tweeted at the time of the election, saying Ethiopia heads to the polls. South African all-share is up 7.86% so far this year, but it's 4.086% below a record high of 55,188, which was reached on April the 24th. Dollar Rand, I'll put up a 6-month chart, but obviously we're back over 12 and we're going high. Walmart's Massmart slides as pricing curtails gain chain margin. What's interesting about this story really is that the South African consumer remains very, very soft. Massmart dropped sharply 3.5%. Saying price competition at the game department store chain, which is opening for the first time in this new Garden City complex here in Nairobi. And the girls are very excited because I think they fancy getting it. It has a lot of stuff for the home. Not much choice in Nairobi at times. Egyptian pound at 763. The Egyptian EGX 30 is plus 1.7% year to date. Had a big rally in the last few sessions once they decided to delay capital gains tax. Oil crunch, Islamist war, power cuts face new Nigeria leader. This is a Bloomberg headline, and this is absolutely right. Crippling fuel shortages, power cuts, slowing economic growth, Islamist militants wreaking havoc. Muhammadu Buhari is taking on a tough job when he's sworn in as Nigeria's president on Friday. Former military ruler Buhari, 72, looks good, swept incumbent Goodluck Jonathan from office in March elections by pledging to end endemic corruption and Boko Haram's rebellion in the north. His stewardship of Africa's biggest oil producer this time as elected president may depend on the price of crude. It's going down again, I'm afraid. They've been waiting for a Hail Mary pass. They're not going to get it. On the price of crude, and I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. If you look at expectation, look at funding, there's quite a gap. Buhari is going to be running a government without the necessary funding, true, which is a big problem because expectations are very high, indeed they are. Buhari will be inaugurated in the capital Abuja, takes charge with Brent crude down 46% from last year's peak. Growth slowed to 4% in the first quarter compared with 5.9% in the quarter earlier. The Naira has declined 8% against the dollar this year. If I were him, the first thing I would do is devalue the Naira to 275 beyond market expectations and let the market bring it back. But he's got to do that real quick. Nigerian all share up 2.21% so far this year. Ghana Stock Exchange is up 5.15% so far this year and at a 10.5-month high, which is an interesting development. Kenya brings forward MPC meeting to consider steps on inflation. This is the free-falling shilling. Kenya's central bank brought forward its bi-monthly interest rate meeting as it considers action to curb inflation. Acting Governor Harun Surima. It's not helpful that they haven't got a substantive one. The Monetary Policy Committee will meet on June 9th, the bank said in a statement on its website on Wednesday. They last met on May the 6th when benchmark rate was left unchanged at 8.5% and usually only meets every 2 months. The shilling has weakened 7.8% against the dollar so far this year. Inflation is 7.1%, close to the top end of the government's target range. The MPC is meeting to review recent developments in the market following significant changes in some key macroeconomic indicators and consider appropriate policy action to keep inflation within the targeted path, he said. President Uhuru Kenyatta's popularity has dropped from 67% last December to 48% last month, a new opinion poll has revealed. Poll conducted by Ipsos between March 28th and April 7th shows that the Deputy Prime Minister, William Ruto's rating dropped even more sharply. His has dropped even more sharply from 63 to 35%. Wow. That's an interesting bit of data. And they're saying that the drop is happening all around the government's generally poor response to terror attacks and general insecurity. And I've been saying this for a while. This is the Achilles heel because it's just not credible. Some of these responses. The Kenya shilling is just under 99. And I wrote about this, in my weekend piece, Algorithms and Bear Markets, when I spoke about it. And I said, in my opinion, the shilling is the best barometer of sentiment. We're now in very choppy waters. A move through triple digits is less than 3% away, even less than that now, which is a margin of error in the very volatile financial markets of today. The shilling has been outperforming its sub-Saharan African peers, is now underperforming. The shilling made no headway when the dollar was weak and retreating 10% against the euro. And I expect the dollar to turn stronger again. So I think the shilling has got some serious challenges. We'll have to see how that pans out, but we're definitely in a bear market right now. Kenya Airways gets a 4.2 billion shilling treasury bailout. Needed it, and so that's a good development. Kenya Airways is facing challenges because the revenues have gone down due to the Ebola epidemic and the slump in tourism. Therefore, the carrier has been given a loan of 4.2 billion through the supplementary estimate, says the Treasury in budget documents. That'll be a big relief for Buvi. It's a positive step. But it's going to be a folia annus horribilis, as the Queen once said. If you want to check out the share price data, the first half results, that link is on Rich Wrap-Ups to take a look. The Nairobi All Shares now retreated 0.9699% in 2015 and has fallen 9.126% since closing at a record on the 25th of February. The NSE 20 is down 5.418%. and closed at an 11-month closing low yesterday. There's a story in The Guardian, money for the poor used to build Garden City. Garden City was built by actors, and there's a lot of criticism that they're building shopping malls all over Africa when their main mission was actually to help the poor. Once again, thank you for stopping by. I'm terribly grateful, I really am.